once a crackhead, always a crackhead. That's what one of my family members said. And I wasn't born with a crack pipe in my mouth. Thank you, Jesus. I'm not going to die with one.
This is WJCT's What It's Like, where people share just that. We're starting with some of the most compelling conversations recorded in Jacksonville by StoryCorps, the national story archiving nonprofit, and following up with a deeper look. Jacksonville's Memorial Park was one of 10 locations where StoryCorps parked its mobile storytelling booth this year. Parked because the booth is in one of those silver Airstream trailers.
Okay, so it's about 2 rooms. We've got our little our office space back there, and then you step through these doors, and this is the recording booth. Wow. And
That's the trailer site manager, Jacqueline Van Meter. She says StoryCorps makes oral history accessible by stopping in communities across the country.
People can come in and sit down and record an uninterrupted conversation with someone from their life. And then participants have the opportunity, if they want, to archive the conversation at the Library of Congress, where it will be preserved for posterity.
More than 77,000 conversations have been recorded in booths like this one. One of the stories from Jacksonville is between 35-year-old Roderick Borchade and his mom, 56-year-old Patricia Harvey.
Just yesterday, you gave me a bag of pills.
Yes.
And you told me to take them away from you. You were in tears at the time, and I knew that it was a moment that we wouldn't forget. You were trying to get rid of them. You didn't want them in your house anymore. Where did those pills come from?
Doctors, a therapist. Some were to wake up, some was to go to sleep, some to focus, just to keep me going.
And you didn't want to take them anymore?
No, I don't. I'm a person who has an addicted personality. And I felt like I didn't need them anymore. I felt zombatized, you know.
It was a moment for me to see you push him towards me. There was a time where that was very hard to do.
Patricia was addicted to crack cocaine for 21 years. It started when she was getting out of an abusive marriage.
A man who beat me for breakfast and supper.
And picked up again when one of her sons died of brain cancer. Roderick was taken from his mom, and he lived with his grandma most of his childhood, starting at age 5. Did you have visits with her throughout your childhood?
She would stop by Grandma's house, and Grandma always let her in, always gave her food, anything that she'd need. So we saw her sporadically. She would come see us. She'd bring me food to my back window when Grandma didn't know about it or Grandpa didn't know about it. But it was more damaging to us than anything because we knew it wasn't going to last long.
He would also see his mom outside the house.
I remember being on the school bus and passing by and seeing you outside. You were under the addiction at the time, and I knew it. And I was on a school bus full of kids. And that was a moment that I felt like I had to let you go. By then, I'm headed to high school, and I felt like I couldn't hold on anymore, and I focused even more on my education. Because if I kept the visions and the worries about what was going on, then I don't think I would have been able to focus on school. For that moment, I was like, well, that's not you.
Was it hard to let go?
By the time I decided to, it wasn't. I had to make a decision for my own life. You're talking 13 years of life living like that. I was tired, and I just focused more on something. I think you don't hurt as much when you put your energy towards something else, and I did just that. And mine was my education and writing and my life.
But he didn't let go forever.
When did you decide it was okay to let your mom back in, and how did you make that decision?
My grandma was always a forgiving woman, and she taught me forgiveness. And she told me no matter what, she needs your love and to always be there and forgive her. Don't lose yourself in it, which was my grandfather. He was more stern about everything. So it's a mixture of them both.
She had relapsed before, so how did you know this was the time? You believed her.
By then, I didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care. I just if you say that you're going to do it, I just got to be there every time. Even though, this has happened differently before. You've been bad before. I'm not the type of person that would be like, okay, well, I know you're going to do this again, or I don't trust you. Sometimes they just need you to believe them, because if I would have doubted her and showed any doubt, that probably would have driven her right back to it.
Rod's mom, Patricia, said the reason she stayed addicted so long was the lifestyle.
Wanting to have people around me and, being told that I was beautiful.
And there was the trauma she experienced, abuse and losing a child. She also lost friends on the street. She said a lot of them got AIDS, one was murdered. But when she found herself pregnant at 43 with a baby girl, she checked into rehab.
A couple of nights before, I had been on what I call a marathon. I had been smoking all day, all night. I hadn't got any sleep. And I knew that I had a baby inside me, and I couldn't stop myself. And the thought of killing a child or having a child addicted to drugs was eating away at my mind. I was in front of a bar, and I picked the phone up and I called them. And she picked up the phone and she says, just stay right there and I'll be there to get you. And they came and got me. I mean, I had no money. I was broke. I didn't have any medical coverage. I was on the streets. So they made a way for me to come in.
But that baby didn't die. She's now 12, and Patricia has been sober for over a decade. She says the thought of crack makes her nauseous. Do you ever fear you'll relapse?
Always. Always. You are. It's like a nightmare to even think about it. It's so worth being clean.
How do you cope with the guilt you still feel? How do you cope with that?
Oh, man. I don't know. Oh, God, my kids forgive me. God is forgiving, my kids forgive me. I know there's forgiveness, and that's how I cope with it. I had to forgive myself. It took a long time, and I still got some little things here and there, but for the most part, I got through it. I'm here today.
Patricia's ultimate test of sobriety was when she was caring for her dying father.
So, and I know a lot of people thought that I would relapse, but I didn't. I know that God is with me, that he keeps talking to me, letting me know that I brought you through for a reason. And my children, they are like a foundation where drugs should have made me weak in some other people's eyes. Once a crackhead, always a crackhead. That's what one of my family members said. And I wasn't born with a crack pipe in my mouth. Thank you, Jesus. I'm not going to die with one.
Roderick has coped through writing poetry and performing it, which he does at colleges and other schools all around the country. And that's how he started to talk to his mom about how she affected his childhood. There was never an initial sit-down conversation, just poems about his mom's addiction.
He tells my story because I can't. You see, I'm a mess right now, but I'm loving that he can reach other people through me, that what I went through, somebody else won't have to go through it. Or they'll have the strength and the courage to hear my story and say, I can do it. She did it, you know. Every time he tells my story, no matter how many times I hear it, it still hurt like yesterday. It's like something so unreal. And I always go back, my mind takes me back to the times when I could visualize my kids waiting on me to come home and I never show up. Hard.
Has him telling your story and his story, has that helped you stay clean?
Yeah, it does. It encourages me. My story being told through him helps me to know that I never want to go back down that road again.
But he also recites poems about her recovery.
Let's do pumpkin pie.
Okay.
So I always have to tell a story before it, and then the audience says.
This one's about his sober mom's first stab at making Thanksgiving dinner. She made pumpkin pie.
For some reason, sweet potato pie is in the African American community. We don't do the pumpkin pie. It's a rule, and across the nation, everybody knows this. It's so crazy, but my mom didn't know it. She cooked the pumpkin pie, and she failed at it. It was the worst pie that I've ever had. So please say Pumpkin pie.
Pumpkin pie.
The pumpkin pie lie offended. It wasn't prepared at its best. But what are the terms of the mother bird's worms that she hustles back to the nest? You see, my mother did more than dig tunnels. Her burdens were heavy to tote, for she had been wounded by hunters, and they shot her down with their dope.
Roderick and Patricia spend a lot of time together nowadays. They've gone on cross-country trips and even made it to Canada to see Niagara Falls.
They say things get better with time. I watch my watch watching me back. The ticks and the tocks of her heart and my clock were forcing me close to the tracks.
Patricia said being sober means she can actually breathe now.
She's been such a force on my rhyme. Now God may not come when you call, but when he arrives, it's on time. That's why I say more than just poems. My life has been more than just verse. I think of my mom and perform. I've watched her come back from her worst. And as bad as that pie was prepared, I ate it with little regret. For the chef had been bruised past repair. But she shows that she ain't gave up yet.
This is What It's Like, a production made possible by supporters of WJCT. This episode was based on a conversation recorded by StoryCorps in Jacksonville, Florida. It was produced by me, Lindsay Kilbride, with editing by Jessica Palumbo. Subscribe to hear more stories like this one.
I'm apparently a really naive and gullible person when it comes to males. They don't want to give you any real anything, and it sucks.
Coming in January.
I had no idea that pie would become so famous.
Was it really that bad?
It was that bad and worse.
What were the issues with it?
The cook.